today's video we are going to focus on the Olamic Cutlery Soloist, and some of you may already know that there are two different versions of the Soloist. It is the Scout version and the Agent version. And I actually got the Scout version from DLT Trading quite some time ago. I think I purchased it, must have been well over 6 months ago. But I just recently picked up the Scout version from Lamnia. So now I am finally able to do this video that I had been planning to do for at least quite some time. So we're gonna start off by doing, a little bit of an unboxing, going over the specs, and then we're gonna take a closer look at how the two different models compare to each other's, similarities but also differences. But let's start by doing an unboxing of the Scout, and then we will do an unboxing of the Agent. This is, as always, the typical Olamic cutlery pouch you get your knives with. Kinda, a little bit on the bulky side, but then again the knives, well, at least these two models, are quite large. So let's open it up. And here we have the knife itself. So as always, we can start by checking the certificate of authenticity, which is hidden underneath here. Oh, we also get this little tool so that we can open up and adjust the folder should we want to, or should we need to do that. Let's see, it should be like that. So Soloist is iSolo SE. So iSolo is like a one-off. This one, the serial number is not that interesting. It was made, let's see how you read the dates. This is the US, so this would mean the 2nd of July 2021, I think. And here we have the specified version, or well, they call it shape, since it is, well, it's just a blade shape that differs from the Scout and the Agent. But we see that it is the Scout version. It is a flat grind M390 steel with a satin finish. In terms of handle, we can see that the surface finish is titanium frosty. Style options: acid rain holes, blow chamfers, rocks. Backspacer is blue, pocket clip titanium frosty, and hardware says blue accents. So now we've got that out of the way. Let's put it back here where it belongs. So the knife itself. This is a very large knife, a very, very large folding knife. It is perhaps not my largest, but definitely in the top. I think I'm actually going to have to zoom out when we go over the specs here. Or will this be enough to fit in the screen? Yeah, perhaps, just barely. So let's take a look at the specs. We already know about the titanium handle, the M390 steel. So we have an overall length here. That should be, I believe, around 250 millimeters, perhaps slightly less. So, 25 centimeters almost in total length. That is a large knife, in terms of folders at least. So we have a blade length of 110, or is it 107? Well, I'm gonna go like, I'm gonna adjust it a bit and say 110 to make it easier. And that means it is a very long blade as well. The close length of the knife, let's close it up, is 140 millimeters. I think the official is 139, but I'm going to go with 140. This is a large knife. The blade thickness, or the stock thickness, as can be seen here, is 4 millimeters. Fairly thick. Stout blade, no doubt. The weight of the knife. So the weight of the knives will differ a bit depending on, well, the handle, and depending on if it is a Scout or an Agent, I believe. I believe that the Agent should be perhaps slightly lighter due to the blade shape, but I think the weight, well, should be around, I should have brought my scale, let's say somewhere between 170 grams to like 200 something. I don't think that you will carry, I mean, if you buy this knife knowing how big it is, I think weight is not going to be, you know, you're not going to be counting grams, I'd say. I wasn't, when I bought mine at least. But I was still surprised over, you know, how large the knife actually is. So let's see, the balance point of this beast is right at the finger groove there, as can be seen. I think I'm actually gonna zoom out a little bit to make it easier to not have the knife, you know, go off screen like this. Give me just a second. We are now slightly more zoomed out, which will make it a bit easier to mess around with the knife and do some close-up looks of some of the details going on here. We know the handle, like I stated, is titanium with the blue chamfers, blue accents, etc. It's kind of hard to transfer it, you know, to the video, but there is a really nice look to it that is, you know, difficult to catch on camera. Nice blue backspacer. I would have liked, you know, some file work or some rocky blue backspacer, but it goes, you know, nicely themed with the rest of the knife. The satin finish is, as always, really well done or well made. I am getting more and more into Olamic's mirror finishes on some of their models, and I would love to see this one with a mirror finish in the future, perhaps like another Isolo version of sorts, maybe with some high polished scales, rock scales as well, and some Damascus on it. Yeah, well, one can dream. But this is a really, you know, really good looking knife, I would say, no doubt about it. Let's take a look at some of the other aspects of the knife here. So let's take a look at the closing action. Very smooth closing, very swift opening, kind of like glass smooth. And I mean, there is some weight to this blade, so it does have, you know, the gravity and momentum on its side. But in terms of opening, well, it opens up really nicely, despite being, like I just stated, quite a heavy blade. This is a frame lock design with a pretty solid lockup here of, I'd say, around 20-25%. Definitely no lock stick or lock rock or anything. It's, you know, like I said, super smooth altogether. Blade play, there is no blade play going on here at all. Let's look at the centering. So I would say that the centering is, well, it is perhaps not 100%, but like 95% centered. Most people probably wouldn't notice, and it is probably an easy adjust, just, you know, messing around ever so slightly with the pivot to get it to where you want it. But I would say kind of close to 100, but not fully 100, to put it like that. Other designs here. So we got a bit of, well, we got a crown spine here, or rounded. We got a bit of jimping going on top here, and then it turns into a swedge grind. Should be kind of visible, perhaps. I'm not 100% sure what we should call this blade design here, but I think it is, you know, sort of sheep's foot-ish, something like that, with some tweaks and turns to it. This area could have worked as a finger choil perhaps, or I mean, well, to some it will. To me it works sort of like a finger choil. I would have appreciated if they could have made it, you know, if they're gonna make it like this, they could have made it slightly larger to actually, you know, fit most fingers well. But yeah, or you can just use it as a sharpening choil, but it's quite large for that. Placing your thumb like this feels quite good. It would have felt even better if this was a real finger choil, but even if you go just with the semi-finger groove here, placing your thumb here feels really, you know, feels really good. This is a really comfortable knife. I will say the handle is actually quite excellent, and it is really large. I wear size 10 in gloves, fairly large hands. Placing the knife like this in my hand, see this? There's a lot of space left here. So I mean, you could utilize different grips holding this knife, should you want to. Reverse grip, I never really thought about it, given the design of the blade, etc. But it does feel good in a reverse grip as well. Really, you know, really nice ergos, I think. They could have, you know, this part, this upswept part here, perhaps not the most comfortable for your thumb if you're going like this, but if you're placing your thumb here, it is not an issue. This raised little bump here. But all in all, great ergos. Semi-strange knife design. I mean, I think the Soloist series is the more unique or bizarre design made by Olamic. I mean, the Wayfarer, the Rainmakers, Whippersnapper, Swish, etc. Yeah, I don't own a Swish yet, but I've seen them quite a bit. They are more, you know, how should I put it? Like mainstream design, sort of. Whereas the Soloist Scout and Agent are, well, they are different. And to some people, different will mean better or more interesting. To others, it will, you know, be more of a hit or miss or a turn off, I think. But it is a comfortable knife, a large knife, a beautiful knife as well. So that, my friends, is the Scout. Let's take a look at the Agent next. Oh, I forgot to mention, there is also some jimping here on the flipper tab, which does make a bit of a difference, you know, making it, you know, you get a good grip. Makes it even easier to pop it open like that or flip it open. I think it was a good call to add jimping to the flipper tab. And the flipper tab also, as you can see here, works as a bit of a guard, keeping your hand, you know, secure, or the knife secure in your hand. Now it's time for the Agent. Next up we have the Soloist Agent, and I honestly can't decide which of these two that I find to be the most unique in terms of design, or bizarre, some people might say. Both blade shapes are a little bit out of this world, to be completely honest. But let's start off with the unboxing, and we will take it from there. You know, same type of pouch, identical. Opening it up, well, here we have the Agent. Doesn't look that strange, you know, at first sight, perhaps, or maybe I'm getting used to it, but once folded or unfolded, that is when things get kind of interesting. So let's start off by taking a look at the Certificate of Authenticity. So this Soloist was made the 15th of December 2021. I actually thought it was a bit slightly newer than that. Not that it matters the least. So here we can read that the shape of the blade is indeed Agent. It has a flat grind, M390 steel, and the finish is satin. In terms of the handle, we have a surface finish, which is titanium kinetic mist. The style options here are acid rain holes, satin chamfers. Backspacer is satin, the pocket clip is titanium kinetic mist, and the hardware is colors, satin accents. There is no little proprietary tool here to adjust the pivot, because this one uses regular Torx screws. So this is what the Agent looks like. Quite a bit different blade design from the Soloist Scout. And now that I think about it, there are different blade shapes on a lot of Olamic's models, despite having sharing the same model name. For instance, I did the Wayfarer video not that long ago, and they all have a lot of different blade options. We have the regular drop point, we have Tanto, we have Harpoon, etc. But they're all called the same name. And looking at for example the Rainmaker, we also have a few different types there as well. We have the Harpoon compound, we have the Dagger, drop point, etc. But this is the one model that, well, maybe I'm not totally honest here now, because now I'm starting to think about my buskers, where we have the Vampo, the Semper, the Largo, the Gusto, etc. So there are, well, sometimes they go with different names depending on the blade shape, and sometimes they do not. But as you can see, very different blade compared to what you saw right now here with the Scout. That much I can say. And in terms of specs, the specs are going to be pretty much the same. You have the total length being around 245 millimeters. You have a blade length or cutting length here that will be around 110 millimeters. The close length will be around 140 millimeters. So I mean, that is all going to be the same. The stock thickness is going to be 4 millimeters on this one. So they do share the specs overall, as well as the handle being titanium, the blade being M390 satin finish, etc. So, well, in terms of finish, I guess you can get different finishes, of course, but these two have the same blade finish at least. But let's take a look anyways here at we can start with the handle here. This is a bit less, well, I'm not sure if I should say less fancy, but the other one had the frosted titanium. It was an iSolo special edition, a bit more a one-off. This one is not a iSolo edition, more of a regular edition, if you can call it that. But I'm not saying that this one is not as nice looking, because looks and aesthetics, it will always be in the eye of the beholder, personal preferences and all that. And looking right now here at the knife, I realized that I forgot to mention something quite important when we went over all the specs and everything for the Scout, and that is I forgot to mention this little adjustable thumb stud. On the Scout, it was like a stone or rock shaped thumb stud. Here it is a bit more, it has a more regular look to it, I would say. Checkered surface. And this is a thumb stud that can be completely removed should you want to, or you can can loosen it up a little bit here and pull it forward or backward here. Depending on your preferences and your thumb placement, I would say. Now I put some of my fingerprints on the blade here, but well, it doesn't really matter, I guess. Same great ergos, but on this one, obviously you don't have, there's no jimping here. no jimping going on. We have a totally different thumb placement here. You know, you can still place your thumb like this and it feels pretty good, but it's not, you know, quite as nice as on the Scout, in my opinion, that is. Still it works, but not quite as nice. And I feel like this raised part here, it would have benefited if it was not raised, in my opinion, if it was more, you know, streamlined or smoothened out a bit. The frame lock here is, the lockup is about the same, I would say, around 20, that's a bit more actually, like 30% lockup. The closing action is nice. I haven't really broken this in one yet, but it is, you know, it is nice. Not really on par with the Scout, but the Scout I've had for over 6 months or maybe more than that. This one is fairly new. Opening action is nice as well. You know, it is swift, especially for being such a large blade. There is no lock rock, no lock stick. Centering is interesting. I would say the centering is about the same on this one as on the Scout, which is actually not perfectly centered. Like 95% centered or something like that. I don't have a problem with it, but I am, you know, I want to point everything out when we're going over these two knives. Blade play. There is no blade play. The blade is firm. So this design, well, I think, well, what is, you know, the main purpose for a design such as this? Good question. I mean, in the name it has Agent, which to me has a more tactical ring to it than Scout, for instance. This feels a bit more, you know, piercing or pokey. Like, yeah, like that is one of the intentions. Other than that, you can of course use it for a lot of things. As with the Scout, it does have some interesting grind lines and swedge grinds, but you also get the full thickness here of the spine for a slightly longer part of the blade before going into, it should be visible here, you know, this swedge line. And then it goes into an additional drop point swedge grind from here, closing in all the way to the very tip. And it is, you know, quite pointy, quite stabby, I guess you could say. So maybe that is one of the intended uses for this specific design. We should probably try the reverse grip then, huh? And as much with the Scout, I mean, the feel of the grip is of course the same, since the handle, they do share the exact same handle. So if you want to stab something with it, then I guess it would be good for that. I don't recommend this, you know, really. Not in regular daily use at least. I'm not one to run around with my knives in a reverse grip, stabbing things, but yeah, I mean, I'm just pointing out what thoughts could have gone into the design process of this specific model. It is, you know, both the Soloist Scout and the Agent are, like I mentioned, they are, I want to say, like specialized tools compared to what Olamic usually, you know, puts out. But then again, even when I say they are specialized tools, I'm not really sure what the Scout is supposed to be specialized for. So I'm gonna say they're just very different knives. I own a lot of Rainmakers, I own a lot of Wayfarers, and I do own a couple of Buskers. But I only own one Scout and one Scout and one Agent. And I think it's gonna stay that for a while, because I do appreciate, you know, owning them. They are interesting knives. They are, you know, in terms of fit and finish and quality and, you know, action, etc. They are, you know, really nice, interesting knives. But I do not feel, I believe that I need many more of them, unless, you know, a really special, you know, high polished version with some Damascus and a mirror polished blade, etc. That would make me, you know, consider, or not consider, I would get them if I came across one like that, because it would be, you know, well, I just have to have it. But other than that, you know, despite being, you know, nice large knives, I don't feel like I need, you know, that many of them. I don't see myself, you know, carrying this knife or the Scout that much, but they are interesting, you know, show pieces and conversation starters. That much I can say. Definitely not for everyone, I would say, and I guess that, you know, these two knives are perhaps not the most popular Olamics out there. And I do believe that the Scout is slightly more popular than the Agent, and probably for pretty good reason as well. But let's you know, place both knives on the table and talk a bit about them side to side, shall we? Here we have the two models side by side, the Scout on the bottom and the Agent on top. And we can see that, yeah, the handles are identical, just some different, you know, milling and, you know, pieces of material, but the titanium handle design is indeed identical. A bit different here with the pivot. We can also see now the blade shapes, the differences and the similarities, more of the differences I would say right away. Here we have the upswept sheep's foot design. Here we have more of a drop pointish, almost dagger-like design for the tip here. We can also see that there is no jimping here on this back part of the spine. This spine is not crowned, it's straight edge, and there is no jimping here as well. We can also see here the rock thumb stud that I forgot to mention when I did the overview of the Scout. We can also see that there is a bit of a difference in length in which you can adjust the thumb stud. You have a longer range of adjustment on the Scout compared to the shorter one here on the Agent. Aside from that, there is a larger choil or sharpening choil on the Scout compared to the smaller one here on the Agent. So there are a lot of small, you know, differences aside from the general, you know, major difference in blade shape. Let us turn the knives and show the flip side, see if we can see anything else that we might have missed. Identical pocket clips as well. I think that there are other designs of pocket clips for the Soloist, but I'm not quite sure. We can also see that you use the regular torque screw for the Agent, and you use the Olamic's proprietary tool here to adjust the pivot. Then again, there will be Agents with this version of screw, and there will be Scouts with this version. So it's not, you know, exclusive for each model like that. It can definitely differentiate between the two models. So what more should I mention here about these two? I will say that, you know, they are both, I kind of want to use the word heavily specialized tools, but I'm not really sure what they are specialized for, really. I mean, the Agent here, like I mentioned, with having a more tactical title and a more stabby design to it, I will, you know, think that it's more intended for, you know, semi-combat use of sorts, whereas the Scout has a more, well, non-aggressive, non-tactical, you know, look and feel to it. And in terms of which knife I prefer, I'm tempted to say something in between, because there are a lot of design aspects that I like with the Scout. For example, the jimping, the crowned spine, which leads to better ergos for me. I also think that this, you know, general blade design is more versatile and useful. However, I'm not overly fond with the look of it. I actually prefer the look of the Agent. But then again, you will have to think, you know, what is most important to you? Is it looks, or is it, you know, practicality? And to be dead honest with you, these two knives won't see a whole lot of use from me. I will not carry these on a regular, you know, as I do with my wayfarers or buskers or even rainmakers, despite being a large knife. And yes, I know that, you know, some of my rainmakers are, you know, dagger designed with the only intention really being combat, but it's still, you know, useful tools. So I'm not sure really which one I prefer the most, but I am happy to own these two models. And for those of you that have watched quite a few of my videos, you know that I own several buskers, I own several rainmakers and several wayfarers, but I only own one each of this model. And that is because, yes, I do kind of prefer the other models more than I prefer these two. And I think that's, you know, the general consensus, since Olamic seems to be putting out a lot of wayfarers, a lot of rainmakers, buskers, whippersnappers. Not that many Swish, to be honest. I haven't even picked one up. But I'm getting a feeling that these two knives are not, you know, the best sellers of Olamic. And not that they're bad knives, or, you know, they are, in terms of, you know, action, fit and finish, etc. I mean, these are really, you know, well made, well put together knives, but they are large, they are kind of heavy, and with very special blade shapes. But if you like what you see, I mean, if you've been thinking about picking up an Agent, for example, or if you have been thinking of, you know, damn, I really like the looks of the Scout, that could be an interesting knife, then by all means, I mean, I do recommend it, because, I mean, you will get a high quality knife that looks, you know, the way you want it to look, and it will feel great in your hand. But I'm gonna stick to the more mainstream models. That being said, if I were to notice a Scout or an Agent with, for example, high polished rock handle, with a Damascus inlay and a mirror polished blade, you can be dead sure I'm gonna pick that knife up. That is just, you know, I'm not gonna miss out on such a chance, because I'm right now trying to make a set of knives with those specifications. But I really, what I'm trying to say is that I will need something, you know, really extra to pick one more of these knives up. But I am super glad that I own them both, definitely. And I'm not sure I'm gonna drag this out much more. I mean, my intention was to make a overview comparison video, and I kind of think that is what we have achieved here. I haven't put the knives to much use. I might do it in the future. Maybe I will add a small, you know, super short sharpness test in the end of this video. But I think, like, I have made the video that I wanted to make quite some time ago. And I hope that you have all gotten a better, you know, feeling or understanding for the Soloist models and how they differ to each other. At first, I actually wasn't planning on doing any cutting or slicing in this video, just, you know, making a full overview / review. But I just feel like, you know, no knife review can be considered, you know, complete without actually testing the edge in some way at all. And I know that my videos tend to get super lengthy, and, you know, I guess most people don't, you know, watch it all, just a few minutes here and there. But I still feel like, you know, a video lacking any type of slicing or cutting feels like an incomplete video to me. So let's do some you know, small slicing at least of paper, regular printing paper, magazine paper, and newspaper. And I might even throw in something more, but that will probably be it. But I at least want to show, you know, the factory edge of sorts. So let's start with that now, shall we? And let's start with printing paper, which is what we always start with. And we're gonna go ahead with the Scout first. the Scout will slice printing paper with ease. Let's do the same thing, but switch the knife to the Agent instead. So yeah, the Agent too will slice printing paper with ease. So far so good. Actually, these feel really nice cutting paper with printing paper, and I would expect nothing less from Olamic. However, I know that some of my Olamics are super sharp, others are a little bit less than super sharp, but both of these feel really sharp so far. So let's go for the magazine paper next. Yeah, I think it's pretty safe to say that the Scout will slice magazine paper really well and effortless. Let's do the same thing with the Agent. Hopefully with the same result. Yeah. Slicing magazine paper is totally effortless. Very nice, clean cut. Then we have the newspaper finale. So let's see what we can do here with the Scout. Man. So this was also totally effortless, really nice performance. And then we will go with the Agent next. So, slicing newspaper, totally effortless. I will say that I expected the knives to be sharp and performing well. That is the standard by Olamic, but these two performed really excellent, I've got to say. Super nice performance even. I'm tempted to throw in another sharpness test. I might actually do it, but man, this is nice performance, no doubt. I am throwing in one final test in this video. I will not do any further cutting because I don't want the video to drag on for too long. But the tomato test is an interesting test, and that is why we're gonna do it. So we're gonna start with, well, doesn't really matter which one we start with. We can start with the Scout here. Let's see. Let's go on this side and see if we can cut through the skin here with ease. Very thin slice. So slicing a tomato like this seems to be very easy. Nice thin pieces of tomatoes here. Let's go with the
Agent next. Maybe I went for a bit too thin of a slice. Throw that one away and go for a new one here. So cutting up tomatoes with the Agent is not that hard as well. It slices through the peel of the tomato nicely. Let's go with Scout for a bit. I will say that the Scout feels slightly nicer to work with for this sort of, you know, kitchen duty. But for, you know, stabbiness, yeah, this feels much. No, seriously, yeah, this one is stabbier, of course. But I will say that, you know, this one feels better to work with in the kitchen, and I mean, I do appreciate the extra belly, and it also feels like there's a slight different geometry actually to the edge as well. So yeah. But they will, I mean, obviously they will both work in the kitchen. So, but this was just a minor test that I wanted to throw in because, you know, the tomato test is interesting. It says something about a knife and its factory edge and geometry and overall performance. Now we can conclude this video.